Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pavikara Jacharya Shratar Shratar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Alrighty, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, text 27, chapter entitled The Appearance of Varaha. So we will do the word for word. So, utkṣipta-vālaḥ, kha-caraḥ, kaṭhoraḥ, saṭā, vidhunvan, khara-romaśa-tvak, khura-āhata, abhraḥ, sita-daṁṣṭra, īkṣā, jyotiḥ, babhāse, bhagavān, mahī-dhraḥ, utkṣipta-vālaḥ, utkṣipta-vālaḥ, kaṭhoraḥ, saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak, khurāhatābhraḥ, sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā, jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ, utkṣipta-vālaḥ, kaṭhoraḥ, saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak, khura-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā, jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ, utkṣipta-vālaḥ, kaṭhoraḥ, saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak, khura-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khura-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
khurā-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khura-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ
kaṭhoraḥ
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak
khurā-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ utkṣipta-vālaḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
Modities?
utkṣipta-vālaḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak khurāhatābhraḥ sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ
All right. Word for word. utkṣipta-vālaḥ,
utkṣipta-vālaḥ,
slashing with the tail.
slashing of the tail,
kha-caraḥ, in the sky. kaṭhoraḥ,
kaṭhoraḥ,
very hard.
very hard,
saṭāḥ,
saṭāḥ,
hairs on the shoulder.
hairs on the shoulder,
vidhunvan,
vidhunvan,
quivering.
quivering,
khara-āhata,
khara-āhata,
sharp. Khura-romaśa-tvak,
khura-romaśa-tvak,
skin full of hairs.
skin full of hairs,
khura-āhata,
khura-āhata,
struck by the hooves.
struck by the hooves,
abhraḥ,
abhraḥ,
the clouds.
clouds,
sita-daṁṣṭraḥ,
sita-daṁṣṭraḥ,
white tusk.
white tusks,
īkṣā,
īkṣā,
glance. jyotiḥ,
jyotir,
luminous.
luminous,
babhāse,
babhāse,
began to emit in effulgence.
began to emit an effulgence.
bhagavān,
Bhagavān,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
mahī-dhraḥ,
mahī-dhraḥ,
supporter of the world.
supporter of the world.
Okay, translation purport. His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Boar flew in the sky, slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous, and he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks. When the Lord is offered prayers by his devotees, his transcendental activities are described. Here are some of the transcendental features of Lord Boar. As the residents of the upper three planetary systems offered their prayers to the Lord, it is understood that his body expanded throughout the sky, beginning from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that his eyes are the sun and the moon. Therefore, his very glance over the sky was as illuminating as the sun or the moon. The Lord is described herein as mahī-dhraḥ, which means either a big mountain or the sustainer of the earth. In other words, the Lord's body was as big and hard as the Himalayan mountains. Otherwise, how was it possible that he kept the entire earth on the support of his white tusks? The poet Jayadev, a great devotee of the Lord, has sung of the incident in his prayers for the incarnations. Vashanti dashana sikhare dharani tavalagna shashini kalaka kaleva nimagna ke shavadrita shru khara-rupa jayadegadisha hare. All glories to Lord Keshav, Krishna, who appeared as the boar. The earth was held between his tusks, which appeared like the scars on the moon. Om Gana Tamanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshuru Unvaditam Yena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Parakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganaptam Mitam Tam Shajivam Savadvaitam Savadvutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakamitam Sha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunivadi Pashyatsta Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Mandeya Prasada Sayavir Yataha Sangarat Yat Karabatar Avya Siddhanta Sanmanim. Alrighty. So utkṣipta-vālaḥ kha-caraḥ kaṭhoraḥ saṭā vidhunvan khara-romaśa-tvak khura-āhata sita-daṁṣṭra īkṣā jyotir babhāse bhagavān mahī-dhraḥ. Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Boar flew in the sky, slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous, and he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks. So we are continuing the divine appearance of Varaha and his transcendental activities. So then there'll be a little, So we'll culminate in this chapter. There'll be some more descriptions. And then we'll get to the next chapter, which is the pregnancy of DT. Let's look at pregnancy of DT in the evening. So, which that chapter, well, it ties into so many different things. That chapter leads into the appearance of Varaha, another appearance of Varaha. And that also, that chapter, what would that be? That leads into, or that is the, anyways, yeah, but what I mean is like Jai and Vijay. So that like ties into that also. Because anyways, described in Vaikuntha that Jai and Vijay saw, I believe something along the lines, they saw like they understood the desire of the Lord. He wanted to like fight, so they wanted to like serve him in that way. So they came. So the arrangement was made for them to come down. Like that incident happened with the four Kumars. And then, of course, when Krishna does one thing, when he does one thing, he accomplishes many things within that. And then, so, of course, within that, he taught how to respect Brahminical culture, and that he's not pleased when the Brahmanas are disrespectful by following like etiquette and such. But anyways, we'll get into all that into the future. So, particularly here, looking at the Sanskrit, there's this one word is mentioned here, so sita-daṁṣṭra, and that should be familiar to everyone. Don't say mahotsa, but does anybody know why that's familiar in that particular verse? Yeah, exactly. So everybody knows that verse. So Vajra-daṁṣṭra. So he has teeth like thunderbolts. So Varaha, it's mentioned that his tusks are white, and they're not. Nothing about the transcendental body of the Lord is how we see in this world. It's not like, whatever you go to. I'm trying to think of what that would be exactly, but if you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's, you go to the paint section, and then you say, "Give me some white paint," and then you look at it and you're like, "Well, this is exactly what Varaha's tusk looks like." It's not like that at all. We read these descriptions of Krishna or his incarnations and of the spiritual world, but nothing is of the same degree. It's transcendental, like colors and things like that. Prabhupada, I forget the exact story, but he was explaining that Krishna is not like black, like how you think he is. He's like transcendentally black. So we can understand that too with Varaha. And I mean, what to speak of just his tusks, but he's a boar. And generally boars aren't seen as like the most beautiful animals, when someone wants to compare somebody, especially speaking in the realm of beauty, they won't be described as well. Like, you look just as like attractive as a boar. Usually that's not the description. Usually, I don't really know what people say nowadays, but like they usually compliment the features of like the different parts of the body, that whatever, your hair is like this, your eyes is like this, your skin is very, very, golden or something like that. So like they have like the descriptions, but whatever form Krishna decides to take immediately becomes of the topmost beauty than anything in this material world. So even like, what to speak on this planet, there's so many beauty pageants and, whatever, every year or two they, do something, there's Miss Universe or something. And anyways, it's usually just, women do those things. I've never heard of like Mr. this or Mr. that, Mr. Universe. So anyways, usually like that. Yeah, he's some big buff guy or something. They got the weightlifting competitions. So, and we could see anyways, so Krishna is simultaneously very beautiful and also very strong. So he wins both. He wins the Miss Universe pageant and then also Mr. Universe by lifting up the earth. And so like that. And Jayadev is making, Prabhupada's making the point, but Jayadev also. So he's able to lift the earth and also able to support that. So it's one thing to be able to pick up something heavy, but then also to be able to support that. So anyway, obviously it's not an easy task because we don't see people picking up the earth every day. There's no, how do you even pick it up? It's so huge. It's like you can't even you're on it. And to get under it to lift it up. Anyways, the whole transcendental science. But there ain't nobody on this planet that's able to do that right now. So anyways, Krishna was able to do that. Able to lift that up. He had the strength and the potency. So Krishna is transcendently beautiful. So he took this form as a boar, and that was a particular form in which he was able to accomplish that task. But also with Boar too, I was reading a transcript yesterday. Bhakti Vikas Maharaj gave a class, I think it's called mahī-dhraḥ. So that's a nice class actually talking about Varaha. And so he was making the point in there that previously, royalty, they would have they would be associated with a boar or Varaha. And I remember reading the history of one particular astrologer. It was called, I believe, I should have looked it up, but I forgot. But he was called Varaha, I think, Miliha or Mithila or something like that. Huh? Varaha Mila. That's it? Okay, thank you. Mihila. Thank you. So anyways, the way that he got that name was, there was one kingdom and their insignia was Varaha. You know this at all? Are you familiar how you got that name? Okay, anyway, so the point is, without going into all the details, so he went to one kingdom and he did some astrological chart, and then he told the king that your son's going to die on this particular day. And so anyways, the king, there's so many stories like this. It's a classic thing. So the king was just we're going to take all precautions so that, my son doesn't die. So anyway, so he kept him in, the castle, on the top floor, and had all the guards there, and it was on lockdown. And so pretty much it's yeah, my son's not going to die. So anyways, he kept telling the astrologer, Varaha, that it wasn't Varaha at the time, but he was just you made this prediction and you probably want to take it back because it's not going to happen because my son is on the top floor. Nobody is coming in. Nobody's coming out. There's guards there. He's completely protected. And so that. And I think there was some detail too. He's if you're wrong, you're going to be punished or something. So anyways, the astrologer was I made my prediction, this and that. And I'm not backing down. And so he's all right. So then it was kind of each day, it was going on getting closer and closer. And he was saying, so you can take it back, you can take it back. And so the day came and he was at a specific time, whatever, whatever, let's see, we're here. But he was at 8:11, it's going to happen. Or 8:11, it's going to happen. And so that time came and it was super silent, whatever in the kingdom. And so noise stopped coming from that prince's bedroom. And so they were oh crap, what happened? So anyways, they went in, and what happened was, even in that situation, on the balcony, they had some huge Varaha, whatever, I don't, statue or something, and actually fell down and crushed the prince. So anyways, it was sad and everything, but then it was that astrologer was right. So anyways, they called him Varaha, after that, added that to his name, and then he was right and everything. So it was that. But anyways, so that particular kingdom, they had that insignia as Varaha. So seen like that, it's power and such. And then also that astrologer was called like that. So this particular verse here is focusing on so Varaha here is it's describing, so Srila Prabhupada opens up his purport by saying, so when the Lord's offered prayers by his devotees, transcendental activities are described. So this verse here is describing the transcendental activities of Lord Boar. So it's describing he flew into the sky, he slashed his tail a little bit, and his hairs was quivering, and giving some description of his glance, and then when he moved his with his hooves, he dispersed the clouds. So some nice description there. And so you can pull this up, whoever's in charge of the TV. This Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 22. And so the devotees, and we see that throughout Srimad Bhagavatam in many places, but the devotees glorifying the Supreme Lord, and different descriptions are given, but here particularly it's being mentioned that they glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord. So let's see here. So I'll just go to the translation. So learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. So this is also a common word that's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but Uttama Shloka that Krishna described by, it was mentioned here, choice poetry, or like topmost poetry, or like verses, etc., like that. So this is actually a very amazing purport. I won't read through like the whole thing. I'll read through like little parts of it. But I'll read the first sentence here. So Prabhupada opens up by saying, human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. So it can keep going on and on. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. The perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. So all different advancements in human society, they're the culmination of all those different departments of knowledge is when one comes into realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then also of utilizing those different realms of knowledge or whatever it may be, and glorifying Vishnu also. Because you can realize God through science, but then you take it a step further and then glorify God through science, and such like that. I mean, not like a scientist, but, whatever, for like instance, I mean, we see, like, let me just think of something here. But, like, for instance, it's like, scientists, they try to like understand like how the universe works, or why, laws are there, or how they work and such like that. So then of like understanding those things and understanding that God is behind it, then in taking it further, that he's, so amazing and has so much intellect and power that he's able to create these different material laws like that. Or he's able to create in the universe in such a way that it functions like that, able to keep things in perfect balance and harmony. And of course, you can use all the scientific jargon that goes with that, or whatever. Just like, and then for instance, in like music and art is pretty easy, because there's a lot of that still existing nowadays. Like people they build, fancy churches with architect and art, and then there's so much like religious art out there in like all spheres, of course, and we have so much artwork in our Vaishnava tradition, and then even in other traditions, of course not Muslims, because they don't believe in art. Just what they don't believe in, like depicting like God, it's like whatever, it's heresy. They have their art, but it's usually just like very impersonal. But like like you see, and I think it's the 16th chapel, they have that depiction of God on top, which is not, we have a different understanding of God, obviously, but it's like it's a religious expression. And then what else? And then music also. At least previously, people, they would write, religious songs. And there's still some of that nowadays. Maybe it's a little different because it's like rock and roll and stuff like that. So they, but the idea is that whatever one's abilities has, it should be utilized in a Krishna conscious way. And the perfection of that is coming to God and glorifying with that. And Prabhupada makes a lot of points in the purport here. We won't go through all of them. Let's see here. And this is a very elaborate purport. There's a lot that can be said, but I'll read some of the last paragraph here. So, when advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literatures are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects, but if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly, Vyasadeva is a great writer, and both of them have elaborately engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. That's an interesting point there, actually, just on this subject, that we see that, and there's so many other great examples, but that these particular, specifically focusing on Valmiki and Vyasadeva, is that by them utilizing that ability to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they become so great and so celebrated. And they've become immortal, and that their works are, like eternally existing and well known, and like that. And that if someone can move into that spirit, it becomes a great personality in that sense. Of course, if it's done in proper line. But because there's so many different literatures which are, very famous today, and, completely forgotten tomorrow, that people aren't interested in, because it's sensuous subjects, and the nature of things in the material platform is good today, bad tomorrow, or I like it today, don't like it tomorrow, or I don't like it today, I like it tomorrow. So it's on the complete mental platform. And then there's, of course, also that's it's not that people are eternally whatever. For instance, people get the newspaper and they read it and they throw it in the trash because it's not relevant anymore. But we can see, just like we have that, I forget how many volumes it is, but there's so many different we have whatever, I think I don't know how much it is, but that multi-volume set of the Harmonist magazine, which was published I don't know, maybe 100 years ago or something. And a lot of it is still, it's still relevant. There may be some particular things which are discussed in there, which, might have been current, might have been social things being discussed, which happen from time to time. Like Prabhupada would talk about Nixon and things like that. But those things are still relevant because it's connected to Krishna, obviously, and it's of transcendental subject matter. So it's not you just throw those out or whatever. So when things are brought into that spirit, they become eternal. So particularly with this verse, so describing Varaha, and so the different residents on the upper planetary systems, I believe, what is it, Satyaloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka. So they're describing what they saw and the situation at hand. Because remember in previous verses that, so when Varaha appeared, he appeared from Brahma's nostril, and he was really small. Then he grew big. And then now he's growing even bigger. And it's kind of pretty far out. So Prabhupada was making the point in the purport that his body expanded throughout the sky, beginning from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka. So he's huge, up in the sky. This Boar is existing. And so it's a magnificent thing to see, actually. And I was just thinking that even within this spirit, people see amazing things in this world. Of course, this is nowhere in comparison, but beginning to approach that and understand that. There's so many different things that people see. I've mentioned that previously. I told you that. I don't remember what it's called, but like those lakes in Bolivia. There's some lakes in Bolivia that, like, if you see like pictures, it's like really far out. But the water falls just enough. It's like 1/8 of an inch or something. So the water falls just enough that on the ground, it's like some plains or something. And so the water falls just enough that it's able to create like a mirror and reflect the sky. So if you look at it, it's just like perfect. Like it looks literally like the sky's on the ground. And then like people go there and like take like pictures. That's like pretty like far out and like pretty cool. And then of course there's like other things like, the pyramids and then Niagara Falls. You all go there for Transcendental Book Distribution. And so many other people go there too to see the, whatever the water. You never went and saw it. Was it by, what is it by? Oh, I can't remember the city. There's like Buffalo, yeah. It's by Buffalo? Okay, yeah. So anyways, at least like as far as like tourist attraction go, it's like a big thing. And people go and see that like that. But anyways, water. It goes down like that. And then I guess that's really it, I guess, for America, unless you go to Mount Rushmore. Yeah, Grand Canyon. Gatlinburg. For like book distribution or just like going there for... Yeah. Oh, the Smoky Mountains. Okay, yeah. Okay, so Yellowstone. And then with those trees in California. The redwood trees. So anyways, the point is, and then even other things in the world. And then there's also too, was just speaking of, but there's also like huge diamonds that like people get and they put them in museums or they steal them from other countries. Probably say like that Britain, they stole so many different jewels from India and they put it in their museum. So, but the point is that like there's things like on the material sphere that like people are like fascinated by, and then they're like, oh wow, or whatever, like that, and they see that, and it's kind of like they're drawn to that. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you can pull this up if you want, 1041, but yadvad vibhuti sattvam, yadvad vibhuti mat sattvam, srimad orjitam eva va, tat eva vakachatvam, mama tejo sambhava. And so Krishna makes the point that all those different things, so he's speaking previously, he was describing like of this, he's that, of this, he's that, of all like the greatest things, like, that he is like that. And so his conclusion of all that is, so it was all these wonderful, amazing things. So they're just a spark of his splendor. So just like a spark, it's specifically just an amsa. So it's just a little piece. But it's not the full thing. So the point is that like all these great things are amazing things. It's just a little piece. It's just a spark. But then actually coming to this position where Vishnu is personally in the sky and personally before the sages, we're not talking about the piece anymore. We're talking about the full deal. So Krishna is there personally. So how great that is actually. It puts to shame all these other things, all these diamonds, whatever, the most beautiful people in the world, the most wonderful, what do they call that like nature's wonders are, it's all minimized in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Vishnu is personally present. And so like that, he's there. And then this verse also, it's signifying, so in one sense, we can say that Varaha is posing actually. Before he goes and lifts up the earth. We see also that when Krishna, before he jumped into the Yamuna to wrestle with Kali, a serpent, that he adjusted his cloth and everything like that, and and then he jumped into the water, and whatever, annoyed Kali with that. So we see that too, that when that the Lord, whenever he does something also, he looks good when he does it. And then he poses a little bit also. So Krishna also has taste. He has taste and beauty, and he can flaunt, and that's rightly so. In the material world, somebody flaunts or tries to show something off, and then usually they make a fool of themselves. Or they embarrass themselves or something like that or whatever. But when Krishna flaunts or whatever, he doesn't make a fool of himself, and it's rightly so. And then he's glorified even more for that. And then there's like, cheering and excitement, and then flowers rain down from the sky also. It's a whole celebration. And it's very wonderful and very amazing. And there's so many different like instances of that in the Shastra and things, of Krishna flaunting his opulences and his power and his abilities and things like that. We see in the pastime with Narayan Rishi that when the different beautiful girls of the heavenly planets came to try to allure his mind, that he wasn't allured first of all. And then after that, he was like, okay, like, you want beautiful women? Well, then check this out. And then he generated so many. And then he's like, why don't you take one? And then, they took Urvasi. So like that. So he created something beautiful and just like, here, like, take it. Like, what do you know about like beauty? Let's take it up a notch. And so like that, she was created and then she was taken, and she's celebrated as kind of like one of the topmost beautiful residents of the heavenly planet. So much so that when she left, Indra was disturbed by that and wanted to bring her back. And then that's mentioned in the 9th canto. But anyway, so Krishna has all these opulences, and he shows them off from time to time. And then sometimes too, he doesn't, he shows them off in different ways. Just like we see that, so he showed, one way he showed topmost renunciation was just by disengaging Jarasandhar, by running away from the fight. And so he became celebrated as Ranchor and left the battlefield, and when he went to go and accomplish something else. So like that, so Krishna displays different opulences of of knowledge. We can see too, though it's not directly cited so much, but we see within this pastime with Keshav Kashmiri that he cited all these different verses like the wind, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to hear those verses, and then was able to immediately like detect the deficiencies in those verses. And then he explained like that, well, it's like this and like that you called, Parvati the one, I forget exactly how he said it, but something along the lines like, what would you say? But the husband of the wife, but it's like, it's redundant, and it's like almost like applying it to somebody, she has a second husband. It's like that. He was able to call that and then dissect that like very quickly. And then what to speak of just like, having so much knowledge, but then also of like being like aware of every single thing. What is that? Abhigyan, of like all knowing, of knowing everything. And then just anyways, so much can be said about that, of just having that intelligence. And then we also see too of fighting with like different demons or opponents. Krishna has that intelligence of like how to defeat them. He knows all their secrets, like that. Usually like, what is that? That, there's like, people have like top secrets or whatever, especially nowadays, governments and things like that, or like their secret weakness. And Krishna knows everything like that, and it's like a big secret or something. Just like Jarasandhar, his top secret was that, nobody knew, like in the woods, he was conjoined by that sage. But Krishna knew. And so like that was able to like defeat him. And then so many other things, like Kamsa, for instance. I mean, only Krishna could like kill him, but he knew like his weakness, and all these other demons. I mean, they're huge ways. Krishna, knew their weakness, and then also not utilized, but having unlimited intelligence, also killed them in very amazing ways. In very theatric ways. Because for Krishna, it's somewhat of like a play of a drama. He enacts his pastimes, Leela. It's not that he's like seriously in danger or something like that. Like we're in danger, and then somebody does something heroic, and then it's like, wow, like they saved us. Of course, like Krishna saves his devotees and things like that, but it's not that in Krishna's Leela that he's in danger, or like that there's some chance of him getting killed or something like that. He's completely above all that. So he enacts his pastimes, and it's fun for him. It's play for him. So similarly with this situation here, the it's fun and it's play, and he's enjoying the transcendental body of a boar, because that's how he wants to enjoy. And so in that way, he's enjoying in that sense, and the fun that comes with that, of lifting up the earth, of diving into the ocean and then lifting it up. And then, of course, there's that famous picture there of Varaha lifting up the earth. And I think there's some like demigods there, like in the sky and such like that. This picture should be up in here, but let's see. But may not be. You never know these days. But yeah, I don't see the picture in here. But anyways, we've all seen that picture before. So this here, so in the next verse, Varaha will lift up the earth from the Garbhodak ocean. And so this verse here is describing that just before he goes and lifts that up. And Brahma previously was thinking about how to lift it up, actually, because so Manu was, created, and then to create progeny, and then Manu's kind of asking, well, where do I do that? And so the earth was somehow that was stuck in the water when some inundation or something. So Brahma was kind of like thinking about like how to like do that. Everybody was kind of like, okay, like how do we like get that like out of there? So it's interesting actually, but we can understand one thing, that it's definitely was some complicated thing. It wasn't like something so easy. Okay, let me go and like pick that up or like chant some mantras or something. Like it was a difficult task. And so when thinking that, of course, the Lord appeared and then enacted that pastime, lifted that up, and then disappeared. And then the different ways the earth falls down, and then Varaha picks that up in like different incarnations. And we'll see in the upcoming chapters that Hiranyaksha somehow or other like knocked that down in there. And then Varaha came and picked that up, and then he got into a fight. And we won't talk so much about that now. So this here, so the prelude of saving the earth, and difficult task to do. And I would say it's significant. And I would also, anyways, this is a side thing, but I think this is kind of like one of the first incarnations in the Bhagavatam that are like elaborately like described, except like Krishna is mentioned in the first canto, but of like things to come. I mean, we have like an elaborate description, of course, in the 8th canto of Vamanadev, and then in the 5th canto, Rishabhadev and things like that. But I think this is kind of like the first one that's kind of like elaborately described in detail. So, but anyways, with this particular pastime, obviously it wasn't a simple thing, but we can see, and it's kind of like an important principle to note time and time again in our lives, that we may be put into different situations in Krishna consciousness, collectively, individually, or whatever, good or bad, or whatever it is. And the only way forward in those situations, of course, we do our part, and we do what we can, we do our service, etc. But there generally in our lives comes points where, like, Krishna has to give his sanction in order to go forward. We can only do so much. There may be obstacles, there may be setbacks, whatever, or we just may not be like ready. And we may have to wait for Krishna's sanction in order to go forward in our lives. And so it's an important principle to remember, because we can easily get frustrated and think that why aren't things going quicker, or why aren't things going the way I want it, or like whatever, or like how can I like do this? But if we realize that in certain situations that things are completely beyond our control and there's really nothing like I can do in X situation, and understanding and being able to apply that properly, then we can, in a sense, understand that whenever and if Krishna wants things to go forward, then it will be clear and be obvious, and then the path we'll be able to traverse that path. Because up until this point, the demigods, they weren't able to do anything, and they were trying to figure out about what to do. And then Varaha came and lifted that up. And then similarly, we see too with Hiranyaksha that he was such a nuisance, and there wasn't really anything that anybody could do. And then, of course, Varaha came and fought with them for some time, and then ultimately killed him. And so we see like that time and time again in the Bhagavatam of devotees being in situations and having difficulties executing their services, and then having to wait for Vishnu to come or to help, or have to wait for Vishnu's instructions also. That's also there because, of course, Krishna's not different from his instructions on the absolute platform. And so many different examples are given like that. So we see in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, that Krishna handled that situation differently. He could have just obliterated everybody on the opposite field, but he didn't do that. He gave instructions to Arjuna and encouraged him to fight, and then drove his chariot. But he didn't fight, and he didn't fight directly in that war. He took up a weapon at one point, but that's a whole different subject out of devotion for his devotee. So like that. There could be different ways of understanding that and analyzing that. But just timing events or whatever, a challenging situation or a mission or whatever it is. And we see also too, if we look at the lives of different acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada, for instance, that he, by the arrangement of the Lord, he came to America, at an old age, seemingly old age. And so Krishna had some reasons for that, and some lessons that we can learn from that. But we see that he came and things were going a little bit slow, and then things began to pick up, of course, according to the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But life may be like that sometimes, and of course there was setbacks and challenges throughout all the Srila Prabhupada's, Leela here. It wasn't that just it was a cakewalk. There was a lot of disturbances put forward by his disciples and such, like that. And sometimes it's thought that Srila Prabhupada was here, and then it was people, he kind of landed in New York, and then, everybody just fell down at his lotus feet and surrendered. It wasn't like that at all. It was a whole lot of fighting and setbacks and challenges and arguing, and then convincing people, and then they changed their mind, etc. It was a lot of challenges. But specifically, I'm mentioning is that that Srila Prabhupada more or less was, his whole life was meditating upon and preparing to execute the orders of Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And more or less went some final, I guess you could say, gates opening for that was him coming to America, so getting that ticket, and then him, bringing his Srimad Bhagavatams and things like that. So having that written down and such, and getting some books together, at least initially coming for that first voyage. So that, so there was that meditation and that preparation for, how many years was that he met when I got that order from Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? 49 years, so almost 50 years. So, so 50 years of maybe a little bit less actually, because I believe he came to America, Prabhupada was 65, right?
He came in 65, he got the order in 60.
How old was he? 69? 22? Okay.
1922, he got the order, and then he came in 65.
65? Okay, so about 40. 22, 65. Yeah. So anyways, okay, thank you. So, but anyways, wrap it up now. But the point is that, so there was 40 years of Srila Prabhupada kind of ruminating, of course not ruminating how we want, but meditating on those instructions, and then Krishna, paving the way for his devotee to be glorified. Of course, when we glorify and we talk about these things with Srila Prabhupada, it's important to note that he was a nitya-siddha, and it wasn't some, interaction with the material nature, things like that. It's always important to make that clear when we're speaking these things. So Srila Prabhupada, so he meditated on those instructions for so long, and then when that time came, Krishna allowed that situation. So anyways, the point is that life may be like that sometimes. Maybe years, 40 years. Can we imagine struggling to do something for 40 years? Hardly. We struggle for 1 year trying to do something and then give up and think that it's not possible. So that kind of shows that we have to be willing to meditate on those instructions and try for our life, actually. And that if Krishna wants, at the end, things may come together very quickly. So, anyways, we can end there. I had one other thing to say, but anyways, it's some side thing. Maybe I'll say if there's no questions or comments or something, or there's time. But anybody have anything? Yeah, I think you're good.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
So, in the Prabhupada says that in the Brahma Samhita it's described that the eyes of the Supreme Lord are the sun and the moon. I know the verse for the sun, but where's the verse for the moon? I even looked at the translation just now to clarify.
Yeah.
I always wondered that where's the verse for the moon? I know in the Bhagavad Gita description of the universal form, one of the eyes, one
Yeah,
of
I
the
don't
eyes
know.
is moon.
That's all I know.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Gama Vishya means he's entering.
It's in the Brahma Samhita?
No, in Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, that I know, but with Prabhupada and the purpose is in the Brahma Samhita.
Oh, okay.
And the other question I had is that when Hiranyaksha took the earth off the orbit all the way to the nether world, so does it mean that all the living entities on that earth planet died, or what? How do we conceive of what? Does this mean that there were no living beings on the earth planet at that time, or were there living beings? And did you ever look into it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've never looked into it, but so I don't obviously I don't know. Thing is I'm just thinking as far as maybe you have to look at the timelines of things, because Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha are one of the first
demons.
Descendants. So it might have been before it was populated, but I don't. The thing is, I was reading that transcript last night from Guru Maharaj, and so it might have been populated. It might have killed everybody there, because Guru Maharaj was kind of making the point that the demons, they have a problem with this planet because the living entities perform sacrifice here, and that benefits the demigods. So the demons kind of always want to knock out or destroy this planet or cause problems here because they don't like the demigods, and then that disturbs their sacrifice and weakens them. So it's kind of saying that. I don't know. So maybe Hiranyaksha kind of was thinking along those lines in that way and wanted to disturb. But I don't know 100%. I have to look at that past time. And
what comes to my mind is in the Bhagavatam it says that when Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were born, there were so many horrible omens.
Yes.
And everyone in the entire universe, with the exception of Lord Brahma and the 4 Kumaras, were really afraid.
Yes.
So does that not include this planetary system, or?
Maybe. I don't know if there was people but if there were, I don't know how long it was. The whole planet would have gotten flooded.
Yeah.
So they just kind of float up to the top of the water. I don't really know. I'd have to you have to look at that and see, because it might be one verse that mentions something. If they people died or whatever. But
Were Diti and Kashyapa on Earth before Hiranyaksha was born?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
It seems like they're in the heavenly planets.
Bhagavad Gita 11:19 Ananda Bahum Shashi Surya Netram.
We know that when the purport it says about in the Brahma Samhita.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, in a purport to the 11th canto, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada write, the sun and moon reveal the visual forms of all objects. The perception of sound reveals audible form. And then they say, all such informative interactions, however, depend upon the illuminating power of the personality of Godhead. And then they quote, Yat Chakshudesha Savita Sakala Grahana. So, there, that the sun, when the sun and the moon are both taken as illuminating objects, or the cause of illumination in the rest of the world, then it seems that it's lumped together because the illuminating power of anything comes from the eyes of the Supreme Lord. And then that word savita, esha, sakala can include the moon. Savita refers to sun. But you have esha sakala. Esha can refer to like. No, sakala refers to all. Grahanam refers to all the planets. So the literal translation goes that the sun is the king of all the planets and is the eye of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Esha can refer to sun and the like, which can refer to the moon. Because there is only the moon is like the sun as the illuminating object in the universal system. Nothing else is illuminating like the sun. Even Dhruva's loka is not as illuminating as the sun. Because only sun gives light to everything. The sun and the moon are considered illuminating objects. So in that verse, it's included. And this also ties into the Purusha Sukta prayers also, where Chakshu Shuryo Ajayata, and then Mukhadindras Chagnischa. Ajayata.
Again, they're saying the eyes of the sun, right?
It says the sun came from the eyes of the Purusha, the universe Purusha. And then the others appear. Mukhadindra, the Indra, Mukhadindras Chagnischa. So Chakshu Shuryo Ajayata, and there also I've read in translations where it says that from the eyes of the Purusha came the sun and the moon. So sometimes the word Surya or Savita can refer to illuminating objects. Generally the illuminating object is the sun, but when it refers to illuminating objects as a description, then it can refer to the sun and the moon because they are the only two illuminating objects. This is the point I am trying to make here. It is the same verse. But when referred to Surya as one who illuminates, then it refers to the moon too.
So would that mean that the moon is also the king of the planet? Would that also mean that the moon is the king of the planet?
At that point, maybe that word king goes away. Well, that comes in the next line. Yeah. Don't know.
Anything else? You have something? Or anything else from Mataji's? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srimad Bhagavad ki. Another